Welcome to Liner Notes, a podcast about how scholars plan and stay organized and the tools that they use. In each episode, I'll be interviewing a scholar about what's in their pen case, or something akin to a pen case if they don't have one, how they plan their time, and their secrets to an organized scholarly life. I'm Catherine Wright-Jewell, a historian and professor of history at Fitchburg State University. Our guest today is Austin McCoy. Austin's research interests focus on political economy, the left, labor, social movements and activism, the carceral state, and hip-hop culture. His current book project, entitled The Quest for Democracy, Black Power, New Left, and Progressive Politics in the Post-Industrial Midwest, analyzes movements against the criminal state and campaigns for participatory democracy in economics, foreign policy, and criminal justice after 1967. Dr. McCoy is also a public historian and scholar, publishing current social criticism in numerous media outlets, including The Washington Post, Nursing Clio, Black Perspectives, and CNN.com. He's currently assistant professor of history at Auburn University, where he teaches classes on African American and U.S. history, including courses on the civil rights and Black Power movements, Black politics, policing, and the carceral state, as well as hip-hop culture. Welcome, Austin.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well, I think.
I understand.
So I'm going to jump right in with segment one, which is what's in your pen case, or akin to a pen case if you don't have one. And if you wouldn't mind highlighting three of your kind of go-to tools for writing.
Well, my pen case. I'm like, yeah, I don't have a pen case, but my go-to tools are basically, I do have a pen. Right. I mean, so like I use a pen and paper. So that's three. And the laptop, I mean, I think these are sort of like the major tools that I use. And then also my phone, because I'm usually playing some sort of music in the background when I try to do some work. And it's usually instrumental based songs, right? Or albums, right? I mean, so whether it's Dilla and Jay Dilla's Donuts, or I'll just put on my Pandora station with Damu the Fudge Monk, who's also another hip hop producer, or DJ Shadow. I mean, so like, yeah, no, like there's a lot of music that's going on in the background too. So there's four tools that I use.
There's the ambiance tool.
Yeah.
Which is important, setting of the mood. I mean, I have the issue where I can't write if there's words.
Yeah, same.
It sounds like you're the same.
Same. I mean, the only exception that has existed as like since being a grad student has been Erykah Badu's New America Part 1. That album, for some reason, that actually got me through writing my master's thesis at Kent State. Like, and it was an album that I really didn't like when I first listened to it. I was just like, what is going on here? It's like a mix between, I mean, like if anyone has listened to Erykah Badu's stuff, I mean, it's usually soulful, like sort of that neo soul. But it was like the album felt a little more experimental than normal. And there's like songs where she's just chanting, right? I mean, so like, I think there was something about the low frequency of all the songs that sort of just, it didn't matter what the lyrics were. Like you could sort of choose to just not pay attention to them, but usually, yeah, I'm the same. I can't, like, if there's like, like at most it's either that or it's, a DJ Shadow track that might sample some dialogue here and there, but I know it so well that I just tune it out.
Yeah. Well, and I think we mentioned, cause Madlib Sound Ancestors just came out. Yep. And like, so the second that came out, I was like, because I work so much to his Blue Note.
Yeah, same.
Madlib and Shades of Blue.
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, here we go. And I put it on, and like for a while, like the first 7 songs, I was like in the flow, and then like it kind of like towards the end sort of shifted, and it got like these different layers of sounds, and like there was like a higher frequency towards the end, and like a more like there was one song in particular, I don't remember which one it was, and it was like much more rhythm, and I was like, I'm out of it. Like, I can't.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. I'm sure there's like some kind of like sound expert that could tell us.
Right. I know. It's like we need to bring in a sound expert now. But yeah, no, I mean, because of that too, like, I mean, I've actually been able to incorporate the Madlib Sound Ancestors into the, sort of work, but no, you're right. Like the last few songs, right? I mean, there's a sort of change in tone. But no, I mean, this is the reason why I've just started buying a lot of instrumentals and listening to a lot of instrumentals over the last probably like 5 or 6 years, is because I'm like, oh, like this helps, to a degree. Now, if I feel like I really, really, really need to just zero in, then I might not, listen to anything. But usually I am. 90% of the time I am.
Like when you're in a writing mode, like, you've got your stuff around, you've got your basic tools.
Yeah.
Like how do you set it up? Like, what does a writing session look like?
Yeah. I mean, it depends. I mean, so there are some people who are, I would say I'm more workman-like or worker-like now than I used to be. Like in the past, like I used to think I was like an inspirational writer. Like, well, just whenever it comes to me, I'll just sit down and I'll be able to write stuff. Exactly.
Argument. Just come to me.
Exactly. And I still have those like eureka moments, but like I do feel like I'm like more worker-like in the sense of, I feel like I need more of a routine in terms of, okay, I need to be able to set aside a certain amount of time during the day. And it could be any time as long as I set it aside. I mean, so there are times where I work well in the morning. Like I can just wake up, have breakfast, and you know what? Like I can sit down and do work. And usually that's when I'm really in the middle of a project, when I already know what I'm trying to argue or what I'm trying to say. When I am at the beginning of trying to get to that point, I still have to set aside time, but it's sort of, it could happen at any moment. So like that could be the sort of part that might be a little more inspirational, where it's like, okay, if I'm not in the writing mode, then I might have to get up, take a walk, breakfast, and try to put myself into that frame of mind. And then by the afternoon, hopefully I can sit down and, start writing. Or I wake up and I have to just like do that, initial waking up process and then read. Sometimes reading helps me get into that mode, whether it's reading, and usually it's either reading a secondary source that's related to my project or a book that might be, methodologically inspirational. I have like Keeanga Yamada Taylor's book about housing, and then what's the other? The Sadia Hartman's, her newest book. Like those are like my two sort of right now at this moment sort of inspirational go-tos in terms of method. So it's like, okay, if I feel like I need something to jog my memory, then I'll like go to one of those books, or even if I have to like grade or read someone else's writing, because that helps sort of work out the analytical muscle, so to speak.
It was really interesting how, just that idea of reading, like I think we tend to think about the act of reading as like, okay, we're either like having a conversation with this work, or, there's something in it that we need to like use. We have this sort of like utilitarian approach to the reading process. Like I need to gut the book. I need to get the argument so that I can cite it in the footnotes.
Right.
But like you're pointing out that there is this like this framework that happens of like, you need like, not just this person's method, but like their framework that they're using to approach a topic.
Exactly.
It's like you can put yourself into that frame and it gives you like a new place to go in the writing.
Right. Exactly. No, it's almost like I know how to think, but I also need someone to tell me how to think at the same time. Right. It's like, I know what I want to argue. I know what I want to say broadly, but if I'm reading a text that's, related to my project on, campaigns for participatory democracy in the Midwest, it's like, okay, well, maybe I need to read something that is on the organized labor movement in the 1970s and their sort of struggles for, labor law reform, right? I mean, like if I'm sort of in that mode of thinking about, deindustrialization or any sort of labor, explicitly labor-oriented piece of the project that I'm working on, right? I mean, so yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, part of it is, being able to put myself into the frame of mind of not just my project, but, someone else as, thinking about how they approach theirs.
It's not that you're going to mimic their take on it, but it's like you have that voice, you have that approach to then say, and then here's what I'm going to do.
Right.
It's like the jumping off point.
Exactly.
So it's interesting that you mentioned this because on Twitter recently, somebody was asking about like I'm stuck on an introduction and I don't know what to do. And so I came in and I said, well, I reverse outlined an introduction that I really like. Yeah. And I try to like fit my ideas into that. And the one that I had done mine on, so Kevin Cruz responded And
Yeah.
he's like, yeah, that's what I did. And it was funny because his is one of like the five that I did that with when I was writing my book. So I told
Yeah.
him like, that's hilarious. And he's like, oh, well, I did mine on Tom Segur's.
Yep.
And then he tagged him, and then Tom Segura was like, "Oh well, I did mine on George Chauncey," and there was like this whole like genealogy of introductions, and
Huh.
it just made me think about like how so much of our writing process, like we have these little spaces, we've got our mood set, but
Right.
like we're always so much in these larger conversations.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. No, that's interesting. I mean, that's something I'm like, oh, well, I think when it's time for me to write my introduction, and it's like, yeah, no, you're trying to sort of, yeah, examine other folks' frameworks, whether it is a whole project or a piece of the project, and try to see, okay, how can I put or insert, um, for lack of a better term, my own data, my own.
Maybe I'll transition to segment two, which is then so when you're in the writing process, how do you go about organizing your time? So you mentioned structuring like time of day, but like how do you actually organize your writing projects and balancing it with teaching? And do you have one space for teaching, one for writing? Do you use the same programs? Like what's sort of your process of making it all work together?
Yeah, no, I mean, so I've been on leave this academic year, so like I haven't had to worry about dividing my time between writing and teaching. So I'll start with sort of me in the present. Um, Basically, uh, what I and I'll also start with what I don't do. What I don't do anymore is pulling all nighters like I used to in grad school. So like I don't do any of that anymore, and I don't put myself, which means I don't put myself on any hard deadlines. So like I used to say, okay, I want to get this chapter done or this section done by this day, right? I mean, like I might do that, generally, but I don't try to stick to it in the sense of, oh, if I said I wanted it done by this Wednesday and I'm not done, I'm going to stay up until I get it done. Like, I don't do that anymore, which is for me probably very healthy at this point. It's like, sleep is important. Taking care of yourself is important. The way it's been working out now has been, yeah, like I've been able to wake up, do the morning routine, and then I'm probably sitting down to write, and write could just be in quotes because writing for me is um, outlining, making timelines, writing actual, prose, or even just jotting down notes into a Word document or into the document that I'm going to then use to, produce the part of my project. So I take an expansive view of what writing means. So I try to basically I'm sitting down to do this like probably around 9:30 a.m. And then I will probably write for a couple hours, do lunch, and then maybe come back and write maybe for another hour or two. And so that's probably like 3 to 4 hours. When I have a day off, when I'm not
Mhm.
teaching. And then basically what I do is okay. Anything after that is sort of bonus for me. So it's just like, well, like I don't have anything else to do, or I'm like really in the zone. Then I'll just continue to write or continue to work. Whether it is, I might go take a walk, come back, do that, or do some work after dinner, right? I mean, but again, I'm usually done working probably like around 9:30, 10 p.m. at the latest. Unless I really want to keep going, right? Like if I really want to keep
Mhm.
going, I really feel like I'm in a groove, then maybe I'll keep going. But I don't, I don't pull any sort of late nights anymore. The only way I would do that is if I had is if I had an external hard deadline, and it was like, okay, I need like someone needs this, by 9:30 in the morning, and I'm like at 500 words, and I need more, right? That's the only way I do stuff like that now. So, yeah, when I'm not teaching or a day off, it's like, yeah, like it's sort of spaced out. By the afternoon, like I sort of give myself a choice. I'm not sure how responsible that might be, but like it makes me feel like I've gotten something done, as opposed to like, oh my God, I didn't spend 8 hours writing today, right? I mean, which is a lot of time to be trying to
That's a
like,
lot and
yeah,
you can burn yourself out
yeah,
doing that.
exactly, exactly. So like, yeah, I don't do that anymore, and I probably end up, working, more than I normally would because I'm not like, oh my God, I have 8 hours, or I need to
Mhm.
do this for 8 hours. It's like I probably get, good 3 to 4. And for me, it's a matter of, um, the quality of work and how I feel as opposed to how long I work.
Yeah. That 3 to 4 hour time amount is interesting because when I had a fellowship that was just for writing, which was
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
But it was an hour and a half drive from my house, and so I had a 3-hour commute each day, and I had to drop my kids off, so I wasn't able to leave until like 8:30. So I would roll in there, like 10:30,
Yeah.
and so it was like 11 o'clock by the time I got going. But I would write an hour before lunch. I'd go have a half hour for lunch, and
Yeah.
I'd write from like 12:30 to 2:30 or 3,
Yeah.
and like I kind of felt like every day like that was a good writing day.
Yeah.
And that luckily that was my only job
Right.
that year and the only thing I had to do. So that was fine and I got like a lot done. But it's interesting that that's because it gives you like enough in the tank for the next day to keep
Right.
going.
No, there's something to be said about, yeah, the more writing you do, like the once you're able to get into a groove, the more you're able to do, the easier it just becomes because you don't feel like you have to like do a lot of retreading. It's like, okay, I know exactly where I stopped yesterday or even 2 days ago, and I can just jump right back in. And no, I'm always sort of jotting down a sort of makeshift to-do list when I'm doing work anywhere where I'm like, okay, if I'm going to stop, well, these are the next things I want to do. Whether it's I want to read a couple books or I want to, do it, or do I need to take a step back, do a timeline, or do I need to like do some other sort of outlining, or let me sort of reanalyze what I've written, so then I can sort of streamline the prose. I mean, so yeah, no, it's I think you're right. There's something to sort of the 3 to 4 hours where it's like, no, this is a long distance sort of run, and
Yeah.
not a sprint. Like,
And so what, because I know that you have a lot of other, like you've been writing a lot of pieces
yeah,
for national publications and
yeah,
op-eds. And so how do you fit that in with the book project? Do you find that they feed the book project or is it like how are you, because you're writing on a lot of like different topics
yeah,
and really important stuff that I
yeah.
know like you want to get that out there, but then you've got this book project. How do
Right,
you get those work together?
right. Yeah, no, I mean, so yeah, it's another case where it depends upon the topic, right? I mean, so the when I've written about like, for instance, the protests around the police killings over this past like that happened last summer. No, like there is some intersection between that work and my work on Detroiters organizing against the police killings of black folks, in that city during the early 1970s. So I can already sort of bring in an analysis, right, in my background understanding of that history to the present in terms of thinking about our contemporary moment and how activists are responding to the killings that happened this past year, and then also the sort of like what are the larger meanings behind that. I mean, so I can do it. Now the thing is that there's only 24 hours in a day, right? I mean, and uh, you know the op-ed pieces and the large project, these are like two different types of writing, and
Mm-hmm.
not just in language and tone but in approach. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like I mean there were a couple of op-eds where I was up until like probably past midnight, 1 a.m. Like again, I don't go past anything like that, but there were like one or two where it was like, oh, they really want 750 to 1,000 words or 1,500 words, uh, you know, in like by tomorrow, right? Like that's what they want. So I have to give it to them tomorrow morning. So that means the book stuff will just go on hold. Like I can't do both at the same time. It's like, okay, we're going to try to meet this immediate deadline. But then there are others, like I've written some other pieces that, I was able to take a longer time to get it completed. And I could sort of do this thing where, every other day I can sort of like vacillate between both projects, between the book project and, writing this op-ed, or writing this essay, right? I mean, so that's one way. I mean, but there are times where I become tunnel vision and it's like, okay, I need to just work on, it's okay. I need to knock out this op-ed right now, because if I don't, then I'll lose, whatever I'm trying to
It's like
to say.
sitting like right here, right out of your vision. You're like, I know it's there.
Right.
I can't focus on this thing. I got to get that done.
Right, exactly. And what's happened too, though, is there comes a point where it's like if it's like a high sort of like a moment where there's a lot of activity, and I'm getting requests from people to write things. Yeah, it's like, okay, I might not get to the book for like a couple weeks or a few weeks, but then there comes a point where I say to myself, okay, I got to just cut off the op-ed stuff. Like, I just can't write anymore unless like I get some sort of offer I can't refuse. But if I can refuse the offer, then I'm going to, just so then I can focus on the book, because when it comes to big projects, I mean, you have to really just be able to burrow yourself in and pursue rabbit holes. And when you're constantly bouncing around different projects, it's hard to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and those other projects, they can produce their own.
Yeah.
They can produce their own rabbit holes.
Right. Exactly.
So my third segment is this. Sounds very mysterious. The secret to an organized scholarly life. What's something that you do to stay organized?
There's some folks who are just organized in everything they do, and they can tell you the process by which they've gotten organized. Like, I think what I do, I mean, so I sort of, it's like a decent amount of planning, in the sense of, okay, Google Calendar is my friend. And it's okay, like, what are the due dates for smaller projects that I'm trying to work on, right? I mean, because we might be producing a larger project, but we still need to like try to publish articles and book chapters. That helps us for our employment. And there are just certain things that just will not fit into the book project that you might want to pursue. So if I do have hard deadlines, I mean, those instantly go in the calendar. And that sort of helps me orient myself when it comes to thinking about, okay, I might need to work on these projects and get them done by this time, but then also I can begin to start scheduling time to think and work on the book. So like, I mean, that's sort of the macro way that I, sort of get myself organized. And then sort of below that is, the week to week stuff. I always sort of set personal goals for each week that, again, unless it's a hard deadline, I do not, stress myself out about whether or not I meet them. And I usually try to make them pretty modest, right? I mean, so it's, okay, I just want to, it might even just be, I just want to start reading about a particular part of the project I want to work on, right? I mean, like, it's nothing like I'm like, I need to read X amount of pages. Like, I just want to, just step in and just, knock this out. Or I just want to organize my sources, right? I mean, like, I just want to put my books in stacks that I know that I'm going to have to, get to, and make a list of the articles, or make a stack of the articles that I want to read. So like it could even be that in terms of like the sort of actual tangible organizing my materials. It could be from that too. Okay, I want to actually have, I would like to write, 500 words, or have like 1,000 words written, by the end of the week or something, or end of a couple days. So yeah, I always sort of, it's like this, I don't want to necessarily say it's like staircase, but like, I always sort of start at a macro level, like what do I have to get done? Whether it is, articles, talks, but then from there it's okay. If I know when I have to get these things done, then I can start, okay, week, day, like week to week, okay, what do I want to get done? And then day to day, what are my days going to look like?
It's like the big rocks. Like, you put the big rocks in, like,
Right.
they're not going to move. And then you have like all these smaller kind of satellite
Right.
rocks.
Right.
Might be a bad metaphor, but like it devolves after the first one.
Yeah.
But like, like, so everything else kind of circulates around those larger immovable
Right.
deadlines. And
Right.
so like you kind of have a sense of what
Right.
you need to do, but you can move it around.
Yeah, it's like a solar system. Where the big project, like your big project tenure is like the sun, and then it's like, where are these other, like other pieces or the planets, and then the smaller pieces that are attached to the planets are the moons, right? And then you just hope that you don't get a whole lot of asteroids and comets that just come crashing into everything.
Yeah, or like theories of relativity, and like, none of this is actually what it seems, and
Right,
it's all
right,
good.
very true. Very
Math sheet.
possible. Very possible, right? Like, does our work actually really matter?
I mean, so like when you're doing the reading, I just have to know like how when you have a stack of books for a project, how do you go from the stack to the usable material that you need to it going into the writing?
This is where I am rather disorganized in the sense of like I don't have like there are people who say, like, well, I take all my notes using OneNote or Scrivener or so like or Evernote, and I used to do that, right? I used to like I used to you really use Evernote to take all my book notes, and I'm how I feel, right? Like if I like when I'm at my most organized, and I think I'm in the sort of groove of doing the research, the writing, everything is working like a well-oiled machine, then I might go to like a note-taking program like Evernote, so then it just keeps everything there. But when I'm sort of like, okay, I'm trying to wade into the water, I'm not sure, then there's a lot of like reading and, going on Microsoft Word, but then also writing stuff
Hmm.
on paper, or even using my phone when I'm out for a walk, so it's like, it just depends upon what feels good to me at the moment. I wish I had more organized, but
I mean, that's one of the reasons why I did this podcast is because I work a lot like you do, and that I'm always switching like the modes. And like right now, I'm in like sticky note mode where I'm like surrounded by like ridiculous piles of sticky notes. And like a lot of times, like I'll say like very judgmental things to myself. Like, I'm so fickle. Like, why can't I just like pick a system? Like, why don't I have a framework? But I think you're right that there is, there's a time and a place for these different modes, and especially when you're in that process of creating, like figuring something out, it's like it's almost like that search for the right tool or the right piece of paper, like the right thing. It's like you
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, no, that's how I feel, right? Where it's just like, okay, like what is going to work for this piece of the project or this project? And no, I might get to, I might get back to Evernote, but I might not. I mean, the most important thing is, you know, your, the piece of writing that you're trying to produce, right? I mean, like that's the most important thing. And if you end up having a bunch of papers, I mean, yeah, we're in a digital age. Like it feels archaic. Or like, well, that's more stuff I might have to carry. You're killing more trees, but I mean, we're killing trees anyway. Like the trees have been killed, right? So it's just like, yeah, what matters is that you go through the process, and like it's yeah. Would it be awesome to like have all these extensive notes in Evernote? Sure, but if that's not happening, all right, and no, like when it comes to the actual books, I have a lot of sticky notes. I do a lot of underlining, and I go from there to usually a page or the computer. Like, I mean, I could write in the books, but I just don't ever think about doing that.
I mean, thank goodness that for Mac's search function that I can like find things
Mhm.
across these different programs. And like sometimes I'll do like a big gather. Like I'll go through my notebooks and like I'll
Yeah,
take photographs and put
that's
them
a
in
good idea.
Evernote so that I can search them, or like I'll put the sticky
Yeah,
notes like into a larger notebook. But like if it's online, like I could just search my
yeah.
computer and be like, okay, I
Yeah.
wrote that
Right.
thing.
Exactly. Exactly. Because yeah, no, that's the point. That's the piece that's too bad when you do a lot of handwriting. It's you might write some great stuff and you can totally forget because you don't have a way to search it. Unless you just go through and reread everything.
Yeah, I've run across notes when I was
Yeah.
going through my old notebooks. I was like, oh, that was pretty good. Like,
Right. Right.
forgot
Exactly.
that I knew that. We need to trust ourselves and like what we're doing at the moment. Like eventually, yeah, like yeah, there might be like the note that like we forget about or something, but eventually it's
Right.
it's it's in there
Right.
somewhere and it's done its job. Like you went getting it on the page, it's done its job. You've got that framework in your head now that
Right.
you can it's enriched your view that you're then going to go create something from.
Exactly, exactly. And yeah, no, I mean, you can always, yeah, if you feel like, for me, it's like when I have time, like, yeah, you really go through and reread the notes and as you're writing, and just to make sure you don't catch anything. It's like, I mean, because no, like that's what writing is it's Constant revision.
Mm-hmm.
Constant
Constant.
revision.
Uh, well, Austin, thank you so much for
Yeah.
taking the time to do this and talk about your process. And I can't wait to see more of your writing.
Yeah, same.
And
No, this is awesome. This is fun.
great. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks for listening or watching today's episode of Liner Notes. If you would like to learn more about the podcast, please visit my blog, The History of Mixtapes, which you can find on my website, www.catherinejewel, jewel with 2 L's.com. Thanks and have a great week.